I've felt for a long time to unite the two communities. Cryptocurrencies allows you, and it has, generational wealth accumulation, but put that in take the profits and put it into gold. You have a whole system this is all about a response to weakening dollar demand and the understanding of a weakening dollar. So whether it be central banks doing this, tying gold, or the redeemability like China and their digital yuan, or gold backing the unit settlement currency, or all of these countries with the ability to settle in gold, you continue to hear gold as the anchor to the system. And what is genius about the Genius Act is creating synthetic demand for something that is losing demand. It is diabolical, and it really, you talk about the word stable. Is it really stable when you're backing something stable with debt and a dollar that's depreciating? It's not really stable, but it still does the same thing. It continues to fund the government. And I think that's what this is, the realization that the dollar is weakening, the system is moving. Things don't always repeat, but they rhyme. And we're not going to see a redeemability in currency the way that we did prior to 33 when Roosevelt confiscated gold, where you could take a $20 gold coin and get a $20 gold certificate at the bank and vice versa, but they will use it to anchor the system, I believe, on a central bank level, where countries can take those currencies in transactions at that level and redeem it in gold. That holds their feet to the fire. And I also think it will be redeemable in treasuries, whether it be just in the United States, maybe the SCO issues bonds, redeemable in gold. Bang, just like that, you got demand for it. Okay, I don't trust them, but hey, it's redeemable in gold, and it's held on Enbridge, and we can see it, and it's held in these multi-jurisdictional vaults, even one in Saudi Arabia. You know what? I'm in. So the point of it is that gold is the anchor. The digital rails are the validity and the verification, and I think, to Tether's credit, they understand this. It is a melding of two forms of wealth. But again, it's the anchor in response to a weakening trust in the dollar system. That's what it's all about to me.
You did use the word diabolical for the Genius Act, and I would be amiss if I did not point out the concerns that it is a gateway to CBDC, central bank digital currencies, because these are essentially ways to program and control the currency. So there has been some concern that the Genius Act does lay the groundwork for that.
You don't even need to do it, because you have the digital ID, which it has the ability to, if you look at the digital ID 2020, look at the patents, they have the ability to combine your medical records, your birth certificate, all of this stuff in your ID. At the same time, you have, if everyone is using stable coins issued by third parties, first of all, if you don't think these third parties are regulated up the yin-yang and that the federal government will be monitoring the on-ramp and the off-ramp, that's right. So they'll monitor the on-ramp and the off-ramp, and they can shut you down. And it was like, I was listening to an interview with the developer for BricsPay, and he talked about, this is the B2B side of things, that the retail part that is being rolled out right now in the Belt Road Initiative. And he said our technology has KYC, AML, and KYT ability. Now, we take, Miles Franklin is one of the few licensed and bonded companies in America. This is why we left our company in Minneapolis, or at least our corporate office, because it's the only state that regulates this industry. And I've taken all of the classes, and I'd never heard of KYT transaction before. What the heck is KYT?
Know your transaction.
Know your transaction. And that's the point. They'll know what you're buying, where the money came from, and who you are, and in conjunction with the digital ID, all of these things, and everyone relaxing their stance on a central bank digital currency. It's a central bank digital currency almost in a stablecoin clothing, if you will.
Yeah, that's the whole argument, that it is a CBDC in a Trojan horse for CBDCs. But I want to bring it back to gold. How, again, even with this conversation with Tether, with stablecoins, you have gold, and you started to touch on the reaction from Putin's advisor, Kobyakov, to the Genius Act. He's calling it a crypto scheme. He says the U.S. has devised a crypto scheme to erase its massive debt at the world's expense. The U.S. is now trying to rewrite the rules of the gold and cryptocurrency market. Remember the size of their debt, $35 trillion. It's actually more than that. These two sectors, crypto and gold, are essentially alternatives to the traditional global currency system. Washington's actions in this area clearly highlight one of its main goals: to urgently address the declining trust in the dollar. As in the 1930s and the 1970s, the US plans to solve its financial problems at the world's expense, this time by pushing everyone into the crypto cloud. He goes on to say, over time, once part of the US national debt is placed into stablecoins, Washington will devalue that debt.
And every argument we hear keeps going down the same pathway. It's the only way that this works.
But he said crypto and gold. That's what's interesting, because the Genius Act doesn't mention anything about gold. I just brought in the tether connection, but here he goes and says crypto and gold in the same sentence.
Because he sees the inflows into the United States. He's listened to Besant's comments about remonetizing the asset side of the balance sheet. He probably has listened to my interview with Judy Shelton. I'm joking, but there are people talking about pegging gold to the Treasury market, and everyone's talking about revaluing, including the Federal Reserve. We've done it in 33, as he mentions, and 72 and 73, when Nixon revalued gold from 35 to 38, from 38 to 42.22. He understands it. We're going to devalue our debt. We're going to revalue gold. That's the only way you devalue the dollar. And then you have the ability to, in essence, anyone who's holding U.S. dollars or U.S. debt, they're taking it in the shorts. He gets it. It's exactly what we're saying, just in a different way. And I couldn't agree more with him. He's spot on. The Russians are wise to what we're doing, but there's not a lot they can do to push back. In fact, the devaluing of the dollar and the revaluing of the gold ultimately only benefits them. They don't hold our debt anymore. So for them, we're strengthening their position. But I think he's spot on in what he said.
I just think it's so interesting how little by little we're getting more and more pieces, more and more dots to connect. Now, I mentioned earlier how Trump Jr. was talking about revaluing the gold. I'll also point out that they're also big into Bitcoin, the Trump family. They made Bitcoin a central part of their financial playbook. They had the American Bitcoin company debut on the NASDAQ. Company mines Bitcoin. It's also a Bitcoin treasury company. It's co-founded by Eric Trump. Trump Media and Technology Group, which operates Truth Social, has already become one of the largest corporate holders of Bitcoin. About 15,000 Bitcoin on its balance sheet. It's actually the 8th largest public holder of Bitcoin worldwide. So it's, again, very interesting to me that these guys know what's going on, right? They're the president's son.
It's who has the information.
So they're talking gold and they're talking Bitcoin. And there's definitely more evidence leaning that the world is going with gold based on the fact that we've seen central banks purchasing it. But the question of will we see a kind of monetary reset seems to me to become less of a question and more of an inevitability.
Of course. It is an inevitability. There has to be, you either inflate your way out, which leads to hyperinflation and ultimately a default, or you just outright default, or you choose this road less traveled. When I first talked with you in Vancouver years ago, I said that they were trying to find a villain, and that was because the Biden administration was just too silly with their policies. They were overtly trying to dump the dollar. This is a different plan, yet the same result. They have to reset the system somehow. And so you default on the dollar to bring back manufacturing. You go through a period, it's like the Shawshank Redemption. It's going through the tube that Andy Dufresne had to crawl through to get to the other side. It will be unpleasant for a lot of people. And I just think that the key to getting through this is to own assets, like Bitcoin, like gold, and it's assets that will get you through this. Having your wealth in dollars, you're in big trouble. And I think that's what you're seeing, the world divest of dollars and buy assets. Even the Trumps are doing the same thing. But the Russian finance minister nailed it right on the head. These things are happening. And if either you get with it or you're going to get rolled by it, I am convinced of it. And all of these things that we keep seeing are only putting an exclamation point above my beliefs.
We talked about this before, and I said that whilst on paper the U.S. officially holds the most gold, we know that China has been buying gold at massive levels and taking gold directly from mines. So we're not even so sure that the U.S. is the top holder of gold. So again, for those not familiar with our previous conversation, why is it in the U.S.'s interest to do this if other countries will be ahead of them?
It's just the only way out. Where did Gaddafi's gold go? Where did the $12 billion in gold go that the Ukraine sold? Where's Saddam Hussein's gold? And we haven't reported it either. So maybe we have more gold, all this gold coming in. Maybe there's a whole hell of a lot more gold coming in that we don't know about because it isn't reported, as Vince Lancy said. No one's reported their gold. Alistair McLeod would say that they have far more than we do, that they have somewhere in the neighborhood of 38,000 metric tons. That was 2 years ago. So they're the largest producers in the world. They hardly sell an ounce. I think it's the lesser of two evils. And you want to have any hope of starting over and retaining credibility, you do so by bringing back your manufacturing and still having bonds that are redeemable in gold so that all of a sudden you have a little bit of trust, which enables you to bring back your infrastructure without literally blowing up the entire system here in the United States. It's going to be painful, especially for people, lower income people who don't have assets. And this is the big deal. Either understand that and do the best you can to mitigate your exposure to the US dollar and buy tangible assets, or you're going to watch your standard of living decrease massively. And this year's no different. In the first 8 months of the year, we're down 11+% on the dollar. Gold's up almost 40. The net result is a 50% swing. This is why the wealthy people, and is there any coincidence that it's happened all since all this gold starts coming into the country? No. Yeah, you're going to benefit them, but at the same time, you give yourself a hope of a future renaissance.
What would be the most definitive sign that this reset is happening? What do you need to see to know, okay, this is 100% for sure?
I think it becomes undeniable the moment any major oil or commodity exporter like Saudi Arabia or Russia permanently prices and settles its exports in a currency other than US dollars.
Permanently.
Yuan,
We're seeing that already.
Digital currency, whatever it is, and the large buyers go along. In other words, the entire SCO says we're good. The Belt Road Initiative says we're good. The BRICS say we're good. Very quickly, you have strength in numbers and unity. This is what I think ultimately will happen. But the pieces need to be put in place first. The settlement, the ability to transact outside the SWIFT, the ability to settle in gold in multi-jurisdictional vaults. Let's not forget the SCO is the largest regional military. So, unity, show force, the parade, do all of these things to show that, no, we're not just chumps anymore. We're not third world. We're not to be taken lightly. It will get to that point, and especially if Saudi Arabia came out and said, you know what, the dollar's just taking it on the chin too much. We're going to now start taking predominantly X.